young boy with the braids dripping. I be sitting high cause the Jeep lifted. I tell all of my problems adios, cause I know that God is in control. In control, yeah, he in control. In control, yeah, he in control. I know all things work for the good.
What's up, fam? Welcome back to the Time is Right podcast. My name is Scott Smith. I am your host, and we have a really fun episode today as we go back in time to March 3rd to the faraway lands of Wilmington, Delaware, where we got to be a part of this thing called the Renew Conference. And to talk about this awesome little trip that we did, I have a couple of guests in this room. The full team was DJ Angie, Abel, Rick Harmoney, and we have another guy here that wasn't on the trip, but was certainly a big part of making this whole thing happen. Here on today's episode, though, we have Rick Harmoney back in the building. What's good, Rick?
Yes, sir. What's up?
Welcome back to the pod. It's good to have you. And we have a first-time guest. Shout out to first-time guests. We got Matthew McNutt in the room. I think I'm saying that correct.
Yes, no, you got it right. You said my full name instead of shortening the Matt, so I'm happy.
You are happy. I remember all of our email correspondence said Matthew, so I had to make sure that we kept that right. Matthew McNutt is here because he is the one who runs the Renew Conference in Wilmington, Delaware. And Matt, as a first-time guest, something we always have first-time guests do is just introduce themselves to our audience because they've never heard your voice before. So can you just give us a few tidbits about what you do, where you're from, how long you've been doing that thing, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'm a youth pastor at Brandywine Valley Church. I've been there as the youth pastor for almost 15 years now.
Sheesh.
Yeah, I'm old. I've been in full-time youth ministry for 22 years. I started my first church in Connecticut 22 years or so ago. And at the time, I was hoping I'd be in youth ministry a long time. There were times where I was like, I don't know how long I'll be able to keep doing this thing, but now I can't imagine not being in a youth ministry role, not being a youth pastor. My wife, Heather, and I, we've been married for just over 22 years. And we have 4 sons between the ages of 14 and 21. And so it's been kind of fun over the years. You know, we started off at our first church with no kids. And then we had a season where we had, toddlers at home while going off to do youth ministry. And then a brief window where all 4 of our kids were in the youth group at the same time, which was really cool and kind of special for me. And I like to joke, I have my own brutally honest focus group letting me know how I'm doing on
awesome.
stuff. They do not hold back, which is actually more helpful than it might sound. And now I'm down to just 2 of them left in the youth group because the other 2 are in college. So
wow. Yeah. They're like, Dad, that game sucked. That was terrible.
They have said those words to me. But it's also super helpful because sometimes, they'll tell me things that their friends would never have the nerve to tell me to my face. But then I know, like, oh man, we could have done that better. Or sometimes I find out how much people love something because I hear it or see it through their eyes, which is cool too.
Absolutely. You know what to bring back and try again.
Yep.
And I think one of those things that you probably brought back has been the Renew Conference, right? I'm sure you've gotten some good feedback about that. How long have you been hosting the Renew Conference?
So this one that you guys were just in was our 5th one. We've been doing it for 5 years. There was 1 year where we had to keep it just to our youth group because of COVID and all that. But otherwise, it was something I had been really longing to try and roll the dice on for a bunch of years. And the leadership of my church really bought into kind of the vision and goals for it and were willing to risk some budget money on it. And it's just been probably one of my biggest highlights of the year. Yeah. Every year.
Yeah, it was super awesome. This was our first year getting to be a part of it. And thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Rick, Aaron, and DJ Angie and myself got to be a part of it this year on the Friday night. So talk to me a little bit about how the booking aspect of this happened. Like, how'd you even learn about us as Rick?
No, so I'm part of a couple different youth pastor networks in the region. Kind of a really small local one, and then a larger, broader Eastern Pennsylvania youth pastor network, and the EPYC. Yep,
Eastern PA Youth Coalition, I think,
something like that.
Right?
I don't know.
Epic. We call it Epic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you search EPYC on Facebook, you'll find the group. But I think at some point a couple years ago, I crossed paths with Rick at that. Mm-hmm. And I found out he was an artist, and I started checking out some of his Spotify then, and just kind of keeping it in the back of my mind that, that might be kind of cool. And then somewhere in there, I crossed paths with you, Scott, because I think you were talking about some of the Ripe events at one of those. And I had kind of the same reaction, like, oh man, why am I bringing in artists from far, far away when there's so many in this region doing amazing stuff? And so, about half a year ago, 8 months ago, I finally reached out. And
I think it was like
we
September.
Need something going on the Friday night of the event. Do you have a crew that would be able to come out and do something fun? So,
yeah, it was. I remember that conversation because it was at Epic. I think it was at Good Sam. It was whenever we had that first full conversation, and then a few weeks later, I remember the email. I was going back through the email thread, and we started the conversation September 22nd, 2022. And just to give context, that's how all of these stories happen, right? We're talking about March 3rd, 2023. It takes 6 months to plan any of these things, for any of these things to become a reality. They start with a conversation, and then you build and have dialogue back and forth. And, I think we did 80 emails back and forth between the idea to actually showing up on March 3rd. And a big part of the reason why I took so many emails is because this was a ridiculously complicated weekend for us as Ripe, because we were also asked to perform at another conference the same weekend, Breakaway Youth for Christ, which is in Ocean City, Maryland. Our next episode will actually be about that trip. And they wanted us Friday through Sunday. We had done that in 2022. They wanted to bring us back. But they hadn't officially, asked us to come back. It was kind of the day of the conference in 2022. Hey, can we have you next year? But we never had any official correspondence about it. And so when you reached out, I had to reach out to them, and I was like, hey, if you guys want us, we got to lock this in now because we have another inquiry for the same weekend. And they're like, yeah, we definitely want to have you back, blah, 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 blah. And we're going back and forth with me and that guy, Gary. Shout out to Gary. We love him. And I basically kind of said, Gary, in an ideal world, we could do both. We could be at Renew on Friday, come spend Saturday to Sunday with you, just speaking, kind of out of pocket, not taking this in order, but just saying what would be ideal for our community and for our artists. To get 2 bookings in the same weekend would be better than 1. And they had some budget restraints too on their end that they were trying to nestle and figure out. And so it's kind of all right, do that. Go back, tell them if you can just do Friday with them and you can do Saturday to Sunday, we're comfortable with it. And it's just amazing, kingdom kind of thing, because Gary doesn't know Matt, Matt doesn't know Gary. But both of you guys, being hospitable towards one another and making it work, we were able to almost do a mini tour from Delaware to Ocean City, Maryland for a couple of days, which I think was just a perfect situation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I always enjoy just seeing the way that the Lord uses my gifts, whether it's through music or through the story that I've been blessed with. I call it a blessing, even though it's a roller coaster. Shout outs to Aaron. But no, I love the way God has used my story to impact other people, and the way I share my story is through my music. So it's been amazing to be able to do that on the road, being able to do that and go different places, whether it's just a one-day event or conferences like that particular weekend, and it was such a blessing.
Yep.
So
yeah, it was super cool that we got to do both. And thank you, Matt. Genuinely, we really appreciate you bringing us in and getting to be a part of stuff, and also for being here on the episode. So thank you for that.
No, I was excited to come.
Yeah, it should be fun. So let's talk about the actual night, Friday, March 3rd. We've done our 80 email correspondence. We figured out all the details. We get in the whippity whip and we drive down to Wilmington, Delaware. We get there, 4 or 5 o'clock, get there in time for sound check with the sound engineers, all that kind of stuff. Rick, any thoughts from your end just walking into the space, seeing the church for the first time?
Well, I was excited. Overall. But yeah, walking into the space, the first thing that I like really noticed was Matt. Walked up to him, gave him a big hug, and then we walked into the sanctuary. And then, what is it called? The one shot or
impossible shot?
The impossible shot.
Yeah,
that's like the
fire.
first thing that caught my eye.
Yeah. So it's like this beautiful big sanctuary, gorgeous like lights and, just huge walls and high vaulted ceilings. But it is 100% a youth event.
Oh, yes.
Because sitting on stage is like Nerf bow and arrows. Can you give a little bit of context for the impossible shot?
My attention span was taken by that. Like I was like, oh, I want to try that.
Yeah, one of the reoccurring feedbacks we got when we asked people to fill out the feedback forms was, you got to let more people try the impossible shot. I 100% got that idea from Download Youth Ministry. It's just this target with a little hole in it. And it is what it says it is. It's an impossible shot because kids get one try to try and get the dart through the hole. And it's super hard. It happened once in 5 years. One kid has gotten it through, and it was ridiculous.
What does he win? Like a car or something?
Usually, I forget what we did. This year we had a $50 Amazon gift card. But
you gotta up the price on that thing. Because that thing is not, nobody's hitting that thing.
Some people do really huge prizes, but the 1 year a kid got it, he was trash talking me and I was trash talking him and saying he's never going to get it. And he fires the arrow and he missed. And I started laughing at him in front of everybody. I knew him. So it wasn't, it wasn't another church's kid meeting me for the first time and I'm just going to humiliate them in front of the room. As I'm laughing at him, it hit the back wall, bounced off, and went through the target. So the one time somebody got it, it was off the back wall.
Yeah.
And so he got the last.
It's pretty stinking amazing.
You gotta do like a PS5 or something.
Yeah, I mean it is an impossible task. I tried and I wasn't that close.
I could offer all sorts of stuff. Nobody's going to get it. So
yeah, absolutely.
One of your leaders got it at the end of the night.
Yeah, but that was cheating. It was our worship pastor, and he tried multiple shots, so he didn't get it on his first shot. And like that's part of the skill is can you get it
on the first try?
That one
because
try.
You can always course correct. You know, you can always course correct. There's a spiritual lesson in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But around, so we do the sound check stuff. We go in and shout out to just hospitality. As always on this podcast, we love to talk about hospitality. You guys just took super good care of us and had like a huge spread of subs, and we got to sit around the table, talk to some of the speakers and some of the tech team, and just like have a good time back in the room before kids started arriving. Can you just give context? How many churches come? Like how many youth groups are there? How many kids are there?
Typically we have around 20 churches participating.
It's crazy.
And usually around 350, 325, 350 participants, kids and youth leaders. The goal of the event really is, it's all regional churches. We want young people to see other Christian young people that they might actually be crossing paths with in school and in the mall and in different places. We want to have a really fun, low cost event, but where there's a lot of spiritual content going on. And so like this particular weekend, there were 3 messages and then the testimony, faith story from Jessica Long, the Paralympic champion. And, if you tell kids, hey, why don't you come hear 4 messages in 24 hours? That might not be a huge
selling
hook,
point. Yeah.
But because we want for middle schoolers, high schoolers, everybody. So we just fill it with all these other fun elements and a lot of over the top games and prizes and content. And so kids end up having an amazing time, and we want them crossing. We want a conference experience, but low cost and actually in the area.
Yep. Thank you for the context on the conference. Cause this is just, to me, it's so impressive to see an individual church buy in. It's very similar to Meg and Mike DeHaven. We know them. They run a middle school youth retreat, and they did that for years out of their church as like kind of one children and youth pastor couple saying, how do we build a retreat that brings a lot of people together? And to see that again with what you're doing with Renew, I was like, man, this is so cool to be a part of. and to be kind of, an asset to what you're building. 5 years in, I think it was really, really special to see. Now there's this one really weird anecdotal story for me during the conference, because I was the driver for myself, Rick, Abel, and DJ Angie. And like I said, we're going from Renew. We're doing Friday night. We're going to get in the car, go straight to Ocean City, get to Ocean City by like 1 a.m. So we're on the road, right? Like there's no way to go back to Philly. And about 6:30 p.m. while we're eating dinner in that room before the kids start showing up, I get a frantic call from my wife that there are raccoons in our house. We found out later they were just in our walls.
Not funny.
But she thought they were actually in our house, because it sounded like they were, and they were terrorizing our side of our house, our walls. And I was kind of like in this place where I'm just like, man, I want to be there for my wife, but I can't just get in the car, drive back to Philly to go handle the situation, because I'm the driver and we're in the middle of like a 2-date thing that I can't really just leave, right? And I remember Aaron being like, dude, God's going to do something crazy this weekend. Like there's no doubt in my mind. Like when something like this happens, we always come up against, conflict, turmoil, whether you want to call it warfare or whatever else. I mean, raccoons warfare, I don't know, but it certainly was like, it could have been a distraction from the main goal. And we just kind of like prayed and we're like, God, we trust you with this. And, I'm talking to Dar and giving her like numbers to call for people, how to get wildlife services out, like in a jam, and getting her a place to stay on Friday night, because she was obviously not going to stay in a house where raccoons might be running around. It was just like a fiasco. But it was just kind of like in the middle of that, God is about to move, right? And we get into Friday night. And I don't know if you have any thoughts about Friday night, like the messages. I thought, what was the girl's name who spoke? Sarah.
Bonino.
You should probably know how to say it.
I should. No, Sarah spoke. She's been a youth pastor for 6 years. She just started at Willowdale Chapel about 2 weeks before. I had already recruited her because she had brought her previous youth group to the conference. And the speakers are usually youth pastors that regularly bring their groups.
That's awesome. Yeah, she's fantastic. She's also an artist.
Yep.
So she is a singer-songwriter. We've actually had a couple conversations about Ripe Stuff, trying to get her plugged in, throwing some dates out to her for creatives, open mics and stuff. So I'm hoping that she actually comes around the community. But she did a great job. And the other cool thing that you guys did was worship-wise, you use kids.
Yeah.
Which was
was
awesome.
That was so dope.
Yeah. One of my goals every year is I don't want to feel like a Brandywine Valley Church event. It really needs to be its own thing. And the more I can get other churches that are involved on the platform, the more of a win it is, right? So that's why it's never me giving the messages. It's always other youth pastors or area youth workers. The worship is always student led, and we just throw it out there. If any of the youth groups have a worship team that wants to come and lead one of the sessions. And so we had 3 different student youth groups represented over the course of the weekend leading worship. It's amazing. We don't expect it to be perfect, right? Like every group is on varying degrees, but man, it's always a win when you can get kids up on the platform leading in some way.
Yep. No, that's for sure, man. That was really, really cool to see. And something unique, because you don't see that in a lot of places, where at the like big gathering, you typically bring in the people to do it really, really great kind of way. And it was great in its own way. Like you said, because of the goal of like equipping and empowering young people, putting them on stages, that's where the growth happens. They become the next generation of super equipped worship leaders by getting opportunities, right? And that's like totally my heart and DNA is always equipping, empowering, putting people on platforms that they're going to grow into being able to steward well. I remember after the session, there was a little bit of a break where you guys did small groups where you just kind of like had the groups split up around the sanctuary. Sanctuary is huge. And so all these groups are kind of sitting around in pockets, having a message. And by that point, I was like, Lena, I love you. Good luck with the raccoons. It's go time, because I'm like still back and forth through this crazy process. And then I think it was right around like 8:00 or so, we get up on stage, and the kids were like already ridiculously hype. I don't know if you had been playing Abel and Rick's music for some students or something ahead of the conference or what, but they were
a little
super
bit.
energized.
And we had, what was also cool is DJ Aunt G did kind of like a pre-show show. So in the half hour while they were, so I hadn't really told other groups that, but I told my youth group that the DJ was, I was like, you got to show up early. DJ is going to be doing his thing before we even started. And they're like, what? Wow. So they were already kind of hyped up for that. And that helped spread to other kids.
Yep. By the time I got up there to like start the show off, because I was booked as a spoken word poet / host, and I quickly became just host because I did that first piece for the kids, and I was like, this is not going to work because they were just ridiculous, way too hype. And I was just like, yeah, I probably should have performed during worship or something because this is not the spoken word environment. Like kids are just screaming and like, like just absolutely yelling and stuff. And I was just like, it just became a thing that was like, yeah, this is probably not a necessary component to the high energy, hopped up on candy teenagers excitement for the concert that was DJ Angie, Rick Harmoney, and Abel. And so we just kind of went with the music, right? And just jumped in all the way. Rick, you're obviously the only one here to be able to talk about the set, but what did you think about the concert itself before we get into the other little ancillary things we did?
The concert itself, I thought it was well received. Like, we didn't even have to try. Like, kids were already bought in. Like, I think for a lot of events, you kind of know from the first song, like if kids are bought in. So for Renew, like all those kids, like not even just your group, but even like the kids that were standing on the side, the ones that were over by the baptism pool, like they, like it was amazing just to see how bought in they were. And yeah, I think also what I enjoy is like when Aaron and I do events together, like we complement each other with our songs. Like it's not like, all right, let's go a little less hype on this one, and then let's go extremely hype on this one. It's like, all right, let's keep the tone the same throughout the event. So
yeah,
it was definitely fun seeing you guys on the stage playing off each other. I had looked at some YouTube stuff and listened to some stuff ahead of time, but I was almost picturing more of a traditional, like it's going to be sets. Rick's going to have his set and Abel's going to have his set and Scott's going to do his. And I really love, like, you guys were just both up there and you had your songs, he had his songs, but you were doing it together and really getting the kids worked up.
Yeah.
I had to shut down some crowd surfing.
Oh, yeah. There was some crowd surfing.
That's a win. It's awesome photos. It went long enough to get a couple good photos, and I shut it down.
Yeah, you did. You did shut that down. There were some kids flying.
Like insurance don't cover. Insurance don't cover this. Yeah. Get down.
Get down, kid. It was super good. I mean, that's one of the strengths. Rick and Abel with young people, especially whenever they're together, is super, super unique. And a lot of that is even like you guys support one another with breath control, right? Because you're doing each other's ad libs. You might get 3/4 of the way through a bar and then somebody else needs to finish it for the other person. And so it just makes like for a better concert performance experience than if it had just been Rick Harmoney for 40 minutes, Abel for 40 minutes, Scott for 20 or whatever. And then obviously I just eliminated my 15 minutes because after the first poem, I was like, yeah, this ain't gonna work.
Thank God we had backup songs.
Yeah, we always got backup ideas. We're very flexible to roll with the punches. And I just took my mic and ran out into the crowd, right? And just did crowd work, putting microphones in kids' faces and having them, whenever they caught the hook, they could say it back and just being crazy. Lifted, gifted, shifted. Lifted.
And they just kept saying lifting.
Yeah, they just kept saying lifting every time. That's classic. But also with the added time, I'm kind of like trying to do my best to support the three of them, right? Rick, Abel, and G. And the cool thing is we have some stuff in our back pocket that we can always pull out when the night calls for it. And so one of the things we did is we actually had like a little dance party, did like the cha-cha slide, Cupid shuffle, church clap, church clap, taught the kids the church clap.
It's a youth group classic now.
It is.
Yeah, we were doing that all the next day too. They kept screaming for it during every break, every church clap.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cue it up again.
That's so funny that it actually did impact the rest of the conference. But that's like Aunt G. I mean, we did that in Canada. Even if you go back and listen to the Canada episode, it's from season 1. Like that was a big part of what we did up in Canada for the big concert at the end of the week with Demir. Was we kind of had this like back and forth, Demir performing and then dance party, Demir performing, dance party. With you guys, it was kind of like in the middle of the concert. We just had this huge dance party, which allowed them to like reset, get energized again for the rest of the set. But the other thing that you guys pulled out, which was crazy dope, is you pulled a student up on stage.
Oh yeah.
Now, how did that even happen exactly?
I think he yelled out, he's like, I can rap too. And then I was like, oh.
Of course Trevor did that.
I said, oh.
Shout out to Trevor.
I said, you can. I said, hey, hold on. Cut the music. We're going to let him freestyle if he could rap. And then I said, okay, it got to be about Jesus, but here's the mic. Handed him the mic. He started freestyling. So.
He did his thing.
That was like the best night of his life. He actually posted something later on Instagram about how it was the greatest night ever. Because he had like at the beginning, we did this goofy thing where there was premium seating behind a roped off area, and he won the drawing to get the premium seating with him, and he could pick out a few friends and came with like snacks and stuff. And then he had won some game, and then you guys pulled him up on the stage. And Saturday was really a disappointment for Trevor because like it did not live up to getting everything on Friday.
Oh man,
that's so funny. How old is Trevor?
He's a sophomore.
Wow.
He's a
sophomore in high school. Is he a part of your group?
Yep. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he had just shouted out. He's like, "Oh, I could rap too." And then
funny.
I like heard it. I was like, "Who just said that?" And then he's like, "I did." I was like, "Okay,
we're gonna make this happen." And spin something. And he rapped. It was good. It was a beautiful moment because, like you said, students empowerment, putting students on stage. Right, that wasn't even a plan for us, but it was more of like being flexible, rolling with the punches, seeing the way the night is going. All right, how do we maximize this time that we've been given to steward? This is something we can't pass up the opportunity of.
Yeah. But I also say that too, like there's some events where we have like a strict time limit, and it's like we don't have the freedom to create it ourselves. It's like, hey, we want this, and this. And then it doesn't give us the freedom to like even share our hearts behind some of the songs that we make. Like, how we explain like why we wrote these songs, and the heart behind these things. But it also like when we have enough time or more time, we get to like get creative with it. We get to engage with the folks that we're in front of, and we get opportunities to even like invite them into it too. So thank you for that.
Part of what's so cool about that too, right, is like that was Trevor's best night ever, whatever. Which is great for him.
Whatever. We love you, Trevor.
I'm the jaded
Trevor.
old youth pastor.
It's his best night ever, whatever.
Goofy teenagers. So he has an amazing time, but it's not like in that moment you're just impacting one kid. Every kid in that room that's friends with Trevor feels represented on the stage in that moment too, right? Yeah. So pulling Trevor on the stage actually impacts like 50 kids, and that just are all like, oh my gosh, like that's one of us up there with them, and they're so cool, and this is cool, and so it's an exponential effect, than just the one person on the platform.
So good, man, so good. I loved it. That to me was like the highlight of the night. Not because Trevor can really rap. I think eventually he might get there. But he did his thing, and it's also tough. Like you're in front of all these people.
Oh no, it was his confidence that carried him through.
Yeah,
his confidence. Like he was there. He ain't care.
He didn't care if it rhymed or not.
I was worried he wouldn't give you the mic back. Oh. That was my big fear. knowing him.
That would have been pretty epic
I
if he
just
had.
preface, I'm like, yo, gotta be about Jesus. That's it.
It was. He rapped about Jesus. He's freestyling. It's so good, man.
No, because there's been some times where you hand the mic to folks and you don't know what they're gonna say.
That's a fact. We've had those experiences too.
So have I.
Matt's been doing this for 22 years, ladies and gentlemen.
I've seen some stuff, man.
He's got his few stories, I'm sure, under his belt.
I did laugh though, when you talk about the energy in the room and the response of the kids in the room afterwards, Scott, you were asking me like how'd it go? And I was like, this was phenomenal. And you were like, yeah, but once you sleep on it, we can reconnect in a couple weeks and debrief. And, once you've gotten some more feedback. And I was like, Scott, like they all stayed in the room when I, typically when we have a concert type event, it feels like half the kids are wandering around out in the lobby or going outside for some fresh air or whatever. And that was one of the biggest things that was sticking out to me the whole show was everybody was staying in the room. They might not have all, it might not have been 100% of the kids down in front of the stage jumping up and down, but everybody stayed in the room. And so that kind of jumped out at me like, wow, there is something going on here where you guys were really grabbing their attention and holding on to them. Because realistically speaking, like, some of the kids in the room knew about you guys ahead of time, but a lot of them, you were new. That was a new thing for them. So it was new music, new experience, and they stayed. And so I was just really struck by that. I was like, yeah, this was a win.
Yeah. No, I appreciate
Amen.
you saying that again.
Praise God.
Amen. Let's just land there. What I mean, I guess you've already kind of said it, but is there any other like impact outcomes from the concert itself? And then we'll talk about the rest of the weekend that we weren't there for, but from the concert itself, anything else stick out?
It's fun. I already said I have kids in the youth group now. And so it's a weird, like I always feel like I look at things differently now than I did as a youth pastor 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fun. Like I've been crossing paths with Rick for a couple of years now in these youth network meetings, a few years.
Yeah.
Cause you've been in the area for a bunch of time. And so I've seen his heart for youth ministry and heard it in these meetings and talking about that. And so seeing him as a youth pastor and his heart for young people. And then that night in the moment, seeing it through the eyes of, my two sons that are there, in the youth group, and they're like jumping and tearing up and just feeling this like satisfaction. Oh man, you guys are connecting with my kids in a way that I never could. I will never be cool in the way you guys are. Right. And even my son in the weeks since Renew, my 17-year-old in particular, there was something about Rick in particular that resonated with him. Right. So he was hanging on everything you said. When you were talking, every time I'm in the car, he's putting on the music and, he was taking photos from that night. So he's super hype about like, he got some really good shots of each of you guys going, but it's just it's a really rewarding thing. I love being a youth pastor, but I also love seeing stuff happen through my own kids' eyes and how it impacts them. And so I think it would be really easy for some people to go, it's just a concert. Like, what's the big deal? But man, I'm the dad of a 17-year-old kid that's putting on Christian hip hop in the car now, right? Like that's a win. None of his friends at school are listening to that. He's still thinking about the words in it. He's still thinking about your shoes. He's super impressed. He's a shoehead. Rick, like you guys speak a language I don't know yet. But that's a really, cause as a dad, like, especially for young boys, there aren't many healthy role models out there. So it's really cool in that moment of going, man, this is bigger than an 85-minute set or 90-minute set. This is something they're continuing to think about. The other kids in the youth group are still talking about. So yeah.
Wow.
Oh man, I'm blown away. Like that, like I'm honored. And what a blessing, like, to even hear those words. Like, a lot of times we do events and you don't get to see the fruit of, like, what occurs after. So, like, even seeing that fruit is, like, such a blessing, like, and encourages me in ways to keep on persevering. Because, like, as an independent artist, you never know the outcome of, like, what's next? What's, all right, how long am I doing this for? Or is it financially stable to keep doing this with a family? Like, but hearing that stuff, it's always like, God is faithful. Like, it's amazing.
So good. Thank you for sharing that story. It's super cool to hear it through the lens of a dad too. That's just super special. You know, you're not just talking about, and it's not to say that any of the other students in your youth group don't have value, right? But it's so cool to hear because you have such a acute viewpoint through spending time with him post the event to see how his life playlist is changing, the choices that he's making about what he wants to listen to. I mean, that's our heart, right? Like that's why I've given my life to this vision, right? And left my former place of employment to be like, there's something about this art and music stuff that connects with the next generation that I don't know if there's a more important space for me to operate in, you know, because I just believe in it so much.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, like I'm 47 years old and I still listen to I listen to 80s music, right? Because that was the music of my teen years. And it seems like everybody tends to be kind of locked their favorite music. There's just something about your teen years, the hormones, everything is bigger and wilder and more energy and whatever. And like the stuff you're listening into those years kind of lock in for life.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good. I'm writing that one down. Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
Well, if you think about like most of it, every generation, their favorite music is from their teen years.
When he says that, like I think about like, okay, I got introduced to Lecrae when I was 16, and like his music has influenced me in ways to like even see myself as like a child of God, but also like it influences my music as well, right?
It influences how you've spent your time.
Yeah.
Right? It's influenced, like, if you do percentages, probably 20% of your life has been impacted by hearing that artist at 16.
And I'm probably showing my age with this, but I had the iPod with the little dial that you had to...
Hey, man, I had a Walkman. When it was cool.
No, but like, you know, it was one of those 1,000 songs that you could put on the iPod, right? And like, I remember in high school, like having like all these secular artists on there. And when I got saved, like it slowly transitioned to like The Truth, Lecrae, Ambassador, like all these hip hop heads that have influenced even my music to go out and kind of be this influence for the next generation. So that's powerful right there.
Legacy, man.
That's a golden nugget.
That was really good. Thank you for that. So on our end, at the end of the night, cleaning up, wrapping up, and Mike Montgomery, shout out to Mike. He brought his group from Calvary Delco. Yep. And we ended up going out to get dinner with them at TGI Fridays till like midnight before we drove the 2 hours to Ocean City, Maryland.
I drove.
Rick drove because I was dead tired. I was so tired.
Dreaming about raccoons.
Yeah, basically. And we got into Ocean City to go do Breakaway, but you guys still had more of Renew.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to ask, like, Saturday, was there any impact or stories that came out of Saturday in the sense of like seeing lives get transformed? Because obviously we heard about your son and we know about Trevor and all that kind of stuff, but was there any just bigger picture, like this is what God was doing at Renew on Saturday while we were down at Breakaway?
It was an amazing weekend. Saturday, we kicked off again. We had student worship bands from Calvary and Willowdale leading at the different sessions. We had Todd Peerage spoke that morning.
Shout out to Todd.
He's amazing.
Todd.
And then we had Derek Parks. He's a pastor from down in Wilmington. He planted a church there who closed us out. But we also had probably one of the really cool moments for me on Saturday is we had Jessica Long come. She's a 16-time Paralympic gold medal swimming champion. She is a Toyota spokesperson, did a Super Bowl at like travels around the world, competes, has something like over 50 gold medals from other swimming competitions too.
Crazy.
Besides, yeah. I tried to challenge her to a race, but she just laughed. But part of what's cool about her story, I was like, I'm serious. There's a pool next door. Part of her story is she was born in Russia. with a congenital defect that resulted in her legs needing to be amputated below the knee. And she's actually had like 25 surgeries over the course of her life because of it. When she was 18 months old, she was adopted by Americans, Christians, who raised her in this home. And so she has this incredible story of faith and competition and sports and really surmounting incredible challenges. The adoption story, the sports the physical things that she's conquered. And I don't think I understood how powerful it would be for kids who have been adopted or who have also been battling physical disabilities to see someone like her on the platform. Wow. Being celebrated and sharing her story and triumphing so much. And so I was kind of next to her. Afterwards, we had a little bit of a break time, and there was this massive line of kids that wanted to meet her and get her autograph or get a picture with her. And there were about half a dozen different kids that, whether it was international adoption stories like hers or physical disabilities, that, I mean, it was just tears and hugs and the generosity of her that she would really, like most of the time I was keeping the line moving, but for these kids that were really particularly impacted by her, it was a beautiful thing for me, kind of standing on the peripheral of, oh man, like I didn't realize the power of representation like that for them. And that happens in so many different contexts, right? It's not just about that. It can be about gender, about race, about all of these different circumstances. But for that particular group of kids, just seeing the power of that for them was really incredible.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Shout out to Jessica Long.
Yeah.
So good, man. Thank you for sharing that. Renew Conference. Check it out, people. Wilmington,
March 1
Delaware.
and 2, 2024.
You already got the dates?
Yeah, it's first weekend in March.
Look at God. That's probably the same weekend as Breakaway again. I would imagine.
Probably.
I mean, it was, yeah, I'm just so thankful for the whole weekend, and our next episode will be about Breakaway and share some of the fruit and the outcomes of that weekend as well. But it's just such a special thing to do. And I just, like, big picture, just was like, man, the kingdom is so cool. Because I think under a lot of circumstances, you'd have to pick one. And at least for this year in 2023, we got to do both. And I think we stewarded both really well. And we got to be a small part of a much larger thing that God was doing.
I was so glad it worked out. I was so glad when you told me there might be somebody else. I'm like, well, let me give you a deposit now. Let's lock this in before.
Yeah, you did. He's like, so I just went online and put in a deposit on your website. I was like, this guy's serious. We appreciate it, man. And I do think, like, it's not to throw shade on any of these larger acts that you guys have brought in, right? Like, you guys have brought in some really great artists from, California even, right? Flew them in. Yeah. I think that's dope. But I think there is something, we are starting to become that squad that's getting a lot of looks for these types of scale events, the like 500 to 1,000 youth conference regionally, because people are realizing, I don't need to fly somebody in from Atlanta or go down to Texas or get somebody from California. There's people in Philly for regional to Philly stuff.
Well, and when I say, like, everybody stayed in the room, some of the past guests that I've had do concerts either at Renew or just straight up concert events are people like Propaganda, Building 429, Hawk Nelson. Like, we've had some really big name people come through that building, and you guys kept a lot higher percentage of people in the room, which was cool.
Yeah. Shout out to Prop. We love Prop.
Oh my God.
Prop's my generation.
I'm such a Propaganda fan. Like,
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Prop is more our
that's
generation.
That's what I'm booking selfishly. It's like, I hope everyone else likes this because this one's for me.
Yeah, I think you booked a one person show for yourself. No, I mean, prop is the truth, but it is true. I mean, even on the same sense of Lecrae and whatnot, like, there is a dynamic at play where us who are older, we gravitate towards this. I think what we've seen is this next generation gravitates towards the Abels and the Rick Harmonies, the Demirs. Like, these people who are younger. Rick looks like he's about 12 and a half years old when he shaves. So he looks like he's their age, but really teens connect with you guys. I've said this to you 100 times in person. I've said this 5 times prior on this podcast, but Rick has just a skill and a gift with teenagers, right? That he has the ability, and it's nothing against Abel. Abel does as well, but Rick has a specific anointing around teenagers. Yeah. But I mean, you do, right? I mean, the story about his son, right? Like, that is no surprise to me. I know it warms your heart, but there's 100 of those stories every time you walk into a room with teenagers. When you perform for that demographic in particular, you have a way to connect with that audience and make an impact on them, And that's why, for me, it's like, I'll advocate for you guys to get these types of conference bookings regionally or nationally, because you guys do a really good job with it, right? We're flexible, right? We're navigating the transitions and the changes of the night. It's not a show to do a show, ever. It's, God, what do you have for us? How do we remain faithful to him? Are we listening and hearing what his voice is saying in the room to make sure that we're maximizing the opportunity? And the stories about Trevor and stuff come out of that, right? But, thank you for trusting us. I mean, that's what we're committed to. Like, if we ever get the chance to come back and do Renew again, I'm sure that'll be a conversation down the line.
If I don't bring you guys back, my own kids are going to be mad at me.
That's a good sign. It's a good sign. Matt, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the stories.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time, the energy to be in this conversation. Rick, we love you. Thanks for being on another episode here on Time is Right. Becoming a little bit more frequent of a situation.
Am I?
I don't know. There's a couple recent ones, right?
I've only been on 3.
3?
No, 3 now. 4 later today.
4 in a couple weeks. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Matt. Jarrett, Top Mop Productions. We appreciate you a ton. And thank you for being here and recording, producing, editing, releasing all of our Time is Right episodes. We could not do this without you.
Make sure my vocals sound nice.
Listen, Top Mop Productions he's becoming sought after in the podcast world right now. He's getting other podcasts now because of this thing. So,
what?
Hey.
If you could make my vocals sound like really deep and awesome,
like Darth Vader,
that'd be cool. Oh, that would make my life.
He can do a lot of things. So thank you, Top Mop. And finally, just want to say thank you to all of our partners and supporters. You guys are the ones who make not only this podcast happen, but everything that we do, including trips like this. Without your support, we don't get to be a part of things like Renew and Breakaway as well in the same weekend. All the things that we do are a result of your generosity towards us. So we really appreciate you partnering with us. If you're here today, a couple of takeaways. We would love for you to check out the Renew Conference if you're connected with youth, regionally to Wilmington, Delaware, or even from further away. It's a great conference worth checking out and finding out how you can come be a part of it. It's super accessible, as Matt said, and it's a great experience for young people. And if you're here and you don't currently partner with us with Ripe Creatives, we would highly encourage you to jump on our website, ripecreatives.com, click the give button, consider partnering with us at whatever capacity or frequency is right for you and your own story. All of your support means a lot to us, and it's how we're able to do a lot of the things that we do here in Philly and beyond. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you would like to be texted all of our podcast episodes directly, you can text us at 215-273-3540. Just text us the words "Time is Ripe." We'll know that you found out about our community line through the podcast, and we will text you all the episodes whenever they drop. I think that's it. Rick, Matt, any final words?
Love y'all.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun. Check out renewstudent.com.
renewstudent.com. We appreciate y'all. As always, until next time, stay right.
They know I'm that young boy with the braids dripping. I be sitting high cause the Jeep lifted. I tell all of my problems adios, cause I know that God is in control. In control. Yeah, he in control. In control.